If you would have told me a year ago that I would be traveling to Kenya, I would have been completely shocked. While I've always dreamed of making it over to the continent of Africa, I didn't see it happening in the short term. That being said, I'm so happy this opportunity came around, so join me for my first day in Nairobi, Kenya. We started by visiting an incredible artist collective which was formed to help Maasai women who have been negatively affected by the droughts create an alternative opportunity for income. They go by the name of Kobe Tough and create handmade beads and walked us through every step of the process, from shaping the beads to painting, glazing, and finally creating them into the vibrant jewelry and tapestries they sell. Next, we went to a little cafe where we ate samosas and I was introduced to my new favorite beverage, Stony. I would say it's closest to a ginger ale, but has a little more zing. From there, we went to the Giraffe Center to meet some locals. From the Education Center, you can see Giraffe Manor, which is the hotel where the giraffes will stick their heads in the windows and eat breakfast with you. While that's a little outside my budget, we still got to feed them ourselves and spent lots of time learning about the history of the center, as well as the different species of giraffes found in Kenya. Somehow we got incredibly lucky and our guide gave us a behind-the-scenes tour of the facility, which is even more impressive than it looks on first sight. The center has implemented a natural water filtration system to recycle their water, as well as composting bins, and also creates these little bricks used for fuel out of their recycled resources, which can be used in their local community. My favorite fact that we learned from our visit is that every school that comes gets to leave with 10 little trees that they can plant on their property. Overall, this was an incredible first day, and the best part is we are just getting started. Day 2 in Kenya, we explored the Maasai market in Nairobi. One of the things that has really struck me the most about Kenya so far is how colorful everything is. The buildings, the clothing, the art, it's so vibrant. This market had a wide variety of items, and some of them were so unique. My mom collects nativities, and I was able to find her a beautiful hand-carved nativity that I am so excited to give her when I get back. The market is directly across from the Supreme Court, so it was cool to take a look at that building and hear a bit about how Kenyan judicial system differs from the US. Driving through town is a little wild. Our guide Bundi joked that Kenyans practice freestyle driving, which means that the lines on the road are merely a suggestion. I also noticed that most of the traffic signals we drove by just don't work. We were celebrating, so we made reservations at The View, which is a rotating restaurant that overlooks Nairobi. I had never been to a place like this before, so I didn't really know what to expect, and it truly took my breath away. No matter where we have gone so far on this trip, my eyes are always glued to the window because there's just so much to see. The food was, of course, delicious. We started with a pita platter, which was a huge win, and then I got the pumpkin gnocchi for my meal. It was one of the best dishes I have ever had. I believe the restaurant takes about 80 minutes to do a full rotation, so we were able to see the entire city while the sun was going down. Kenya is so incredible. I just feel really lucky to be here. Today, I drove across the equator. Welcome to day 3 in Kenya. It's the beginning of rainy season, so we woke up to a little weather, but that didn't stop us because we were driving from Nairobi to Meru. We opted to take the scenic route, and I will never complain about a long car ride because I love a road trip. I was really glad I got to see a little more of Nairobi while heading out of town. One thing our guide Bundi explained to us is that the government built this road so people could travel more efficiently, but then all the local communities and vendors were upset because they were getting less and less business as people passed them by. Now there are speed bumps built in quite frequently that force cars to slow down and give the vendors opportunities to sell to you. We stopped at about our halfway point to use the bathroom and pick up some samosas. I also got to try chapati for the first time, and it was lovely. I hope there's more of that in my future. The reason we chose to take this route is because of the rice fields along the road. They're really beautiful. We drove past a lot of local fruit stands, many of which were not yet open for the day, but we were able to find one to buy from and picked up some dragon fruit, which I'm really excited to try. For transportation, people frequently use bodabodas, which are basically motorcycles that are used as taxis. We came across these people transporting a 50-inch television via bodaboda, and I don't know if I've ever been more impressed. As we got closer to Meru, we saw some vivid green tea fields and also saw the banana markets all set up and ready for sales. The drive lasted about 6 hours, including our stops along the way. So when we arrived, I was really excited to be able to stretch my legs and explore the new place we were staying, the Theory Center. Good morning from Meru, Kenya. Today we began our school visits, but before we set off, we picked fresh avocados from the tree and delivered them to the kitchen to ripen. I'm so excited to try them in a few days. We also got to try the dragon fruit we picked up yesterday, and it was amazing. I was invited to come to Kenya with an organization called Kenya Help, which supports 4 schools in the Meru County area by providing scholarships to leaders in their student body who have trouble affording school fees. This first school is called Muthara and is a day school, meaning the students go back to their families' homes each night to sleep. We toured the campus, and I learned that in Kenya, students go to school 6 days a week, meaning they are only home with their families on Sundays.
School typically lasts from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., but many of our students will show up no later than 6 a.m. to begin studying each day and stay late after school as well. After meeting everyone, it's so clear how dedicated they are to getting an education, and it's really inspiring to see. We walked down to the river, which runs behind the school, and on the way back stopped by a local stand to pick up some native mangoes. I'm told they're even sweeter than the mangoes I'm used to eating. When we returned, we were introduced to the pigs and given tomatoes to feed them. From what I can tell, Muthara is as self-sufficient as possible, pulling water from the river, growing vegetables like spiny cucumbers, onions, and Brussels sprouts, raising pigs, and even cultivating a fish pond. Our friend Pancras decided that 4 mangoes was not enough, so he climbed the tree to hand-pick some more for us to try and sent them with us as we left. Before heading back, we drove through the local communities to get a closer look at the tea fields. I'm told that on school breaks, many students will come to work to pick the tea leaves as a way to make a little extra money for their families. We saw that the sky was getting a little dark, so we decided to head back. When we arrived, we had one of the most delicious meals I've ever had, and I made it back to my room just in time before the rain started to pour down. Listen to this. I was really grateful the rain didn't interrupt our plans for the day, and I decided to catch up on some journaling. Eventually, it let up, and I was escorted to dinner by a local friend. If you've ever wondered what it looks like to be a boarding school student in Kenya, today is your lucky day because we visited both Kaga Boys and Kaga Girls, 2 boarding schools who partner with Kenya Help. As a visitor, some of my favorite things I saw at both of these schools were the educational murals painted on the sides of each building and the motivational signs posted throughout the yards. Both remind the students that they are capable of greatness, and I think it's a really nice touch. I did have to giggle walking around and seeing the laundry drying out on the shrubs. This is definitely a boys' school, but hey, who can blame them? If it works, it works. On the whole, teenage boys are not necessarily my favorite group of people to spend time with, but the Kaga Boys students were some of the most respectful young men I've ever had the pleasure of meeting. They asked really engaging questions and were generally super interesting to chat with. After lunch, we visited their sister school, Kaga Girls. Watch out, world, because these girls are impressive, incredibly sharp and full of personality. I even met my future lawyer. We got to peek in on the final presentations for the home ec class where they had prepared full meals, complete with menus and floral arrangements. I would have signed up to be a taste tester because they looked immaculate. Kaga Girls has an MBR policy, which means movement by running. Anytime the girls are moving from one space to another, they are expected to be moving at least a jog in order to be the most efficient with their time that they can be. I also thought it was cool that they had a ramp in addition to stairs in their stairwell. Not something you see too often, but a great way to be accessible. After the school tour, we headed back for dinner and were once again spoiled. All the food has been delicious. And I also spent a lot of time wondering what the probability was that this lizard would suddenly fall off the ceiling and into our food. Any guesses? Every day I wake up, I have to pinch myself because I am so happy to be in Kenya. This morning I had breakfast with this beautiful bird who was weeding its nest. I don't consider myself a bird girl, but after this, I may be taking recommendations for a good bird watching app. After breakfast, we visited our 4th and final Kenya Help partner school, Bliss. The principal himself showed us around, and it's so clear to see how proud he is of this community. I was really excited to get a closer look into the kitchen. The students have scheduled breaks between classes, and during the morning break, they can come into the kitchen and receive porridge as a snack. I continue to be amazed by the farming operations at these various schools. Bliss has a very impressive greenhouse in addition to their field of crops. Where I'm from, we consider garden pests to be bunnies or deer, and here in Kenya, they have to worry about elephants coming into their garden and munching on their crops. We heard a lot about the preventative methods they've put in place to deter them from entering the premises. Kenya Help provides scholarships to students who have excellent grades and outstanding leadership qualities, but cannot pay for their school fees. After having met all of these students myself, I can tell you each of them is a rock star and completely deserving. It's been so much fun to meet them and discuss similarities and differences within our school systems. We returned to find this beautiful table set out in the garden for our lunch. It was the perfect day to eat outside. Where we come from in the States, it's still very cold, so we're all soaking up as much warm weather as possible. At the end of our lunch, we were joined by a chameleon companion, which got me really excited because I'd never seen one so close before. He got settled after we refused to share our mango, and I finished off the day by trying my first ever passion fruit. Sometimes the things in life that are the most impactful are the things you didn't see coming. Visiting Kenya was unexpected in so many ways, but I think the thing that surprised me the most was how quickly I came to admire and respect the students we had the opportunity to work with. These young adults are so creative and thoughtful and passionate. It brings me such joy to have had the chance to connect with all of these future leaders. In a world that feels so divisive, it was the perfect reminder that though we are different, we can come together to love and support each other through a common goal. I learned so much over the course of this weekend. I wish I could show you more. Though the world feels really big, I hope we find ways to stay in each other's lives for a very, very long time.
We are officially back to sightseeing in Kenya, and today we started out at the McKenna Textile. This organization employs 10 women who make these beautiful woven rugs. It was hypnotizing to watch them spin the wool into yarn, and we even got a little lesson in weaving. Honestly, I could have sat there all day. There's something about the repetition that is so calming. While the rugs were beautiful, I just don't have that much room in my suitcase, so I asked if they had anything smaller, and they took us to their secondary warehouse where they had some other items. I picked out this tablecloth because I love the colors, and I think it's going to be perfect in my apartment. From there, we went on a hike to one of the most incredible waterfalls I have ever seen. Along the way, we stopped at a natural spring which pumps out carbonated water. Don't quote me because I didn't try it myself, but that's just what I was told. We continued on, and our guide Bundi suggested we take a before picture of our shoes because it was about to get muddy. I was working with a sprained ankle, so I was a little concerned, but ultimately we made it to the falls, and I was amazed. Even though it's rainy season, we haven't experienced all that much rain, but Bundi said this waterfall can double in size after a good downpour. Even though I was worried about getting water in my mouth, I could not resist jumping in for a swim, and I'm so glad I did. We continued the hike up the side of the waterfall to a cave, and when we arrived, we were told to be careful because it was the suspected hideout for a leopard. Listen, I'm not trying to surprise any wildlife, so I was eager to get the heck out of there, but the views were gorgeous. We made it back in time for dinner, and a special birthday tradition, Kenyans splash each other with water to celebrate, so we couldn't turn down the opportunity. Going on safari means getting up early in the morning, and while I'm not a morning person, this was a sacrifice I was willing to make. We had to delay our start due to heavy rains that came in overnight, but once we were on the road, it only took us about 90 minutes to arrive to the game park. We popped up the top of our safari van so we could all stand up and then got straight to business. There were animals all around us, like these really beautiful orcs, but we kept going until we found what we were really looking for: elephants. Once we saw which direction they were headed, our guide took us to the watering hole for breakfast, where we got to witness both a zazu bird as well as a superior starling, and sure enough, in came the elephants. I found myself wondering if I should be nervous when they were approaching, but they were incredibly calm, which in turn made me feel incredibly calm. I completely trusted our guide to keep us safe, and when I saw he was excited about this experience, it allowed me to fully embrace it as well. I've spent a fair amount of time around Asian elephants, but African elephants are truly so much bigger. Watching the baby elephants swing their little trunks around was endlessly entertaining. I could not believe we were getting so lucky right off the bat on our very first day of safari. We were so close to them, we could hear the grass ripping as they pulled it out with their trunks. I would have sat there all morning, but eventually they had their fill of the water and continued walking. Right as we were beginning to load back into the van, they started to tusk one another, and this is when things got really exciting. Luckily, they had moved far enough away that we still felt safe, but we left relatively quickly. The riverbed was completely dry, which again is unusual for this time of year, which is considered rainy season. Each time we saw a new animal, I could not help but think Dr. Seuss definitely visited Kenya because these creatures look like they stepped right out of his books. Especially these guinea hens with the blue bodies. We were really excited to see this gerenuk standing up fully to eat. I love the way it swings its little tail like a helicopter. In this park, there are two types of zebras, gravies and common. We also got to see some little babies. After driving around for quite a while, we decided to break for lunch and head to our hotel. Along the way, we ran into some baboons climbing the hill as well as little dik-diks. Now, before I get into this next part of the story, I want to be very clear. This hotel and property are absolutely gorgeous and they do what they can, but because of where it's located, there are monkeys pretty much everywhere on the premises. And just as I was finishing my dessert, a monkey peed on my head, which made me sad, so I went back to my room immediately to shower. So after getting peed on by the monkey, I went back to my room to shower, and though it did make me sad, I was determined to not let it ruin my day. So Caitlin and I went to the foot therapy pond where we saw some more monkeys, and I'm telling you, they are everywhere. I was prepared for a relaxing experience, and I should have been prepared for a memorable experience instead, because these fish are not little fish. These fish are big fish, and it was so surprising when they first started sucking on my feet. More of a nibble than I expected, and holy cow, did it tickle. Feet typically aren't for free, but you have to see this. I really could only handle about 3 minutes in the water before calling it quits and heading out for our evening game drive. We drove to a different park and started off by spotting a rainbow right away. Our goal was to find a leopard, and though that would be incredible, just driving through the park looking at the scenery is exciting. Even though we didn't succeed on the leopard, we did find a bunch of other things like this group of warhogs, some buffalo, water bucks, and this parrot who was really showing off for us. There are rules about when you have to be back into the resort in the evening, so we hustled back and arrived just in time. Walking back to the room, the bugs were so incredibly loud, I wanted to cover my ears.
This morning, safari started off with a bang because not 5 minutes after leaving our hotel, we ran into these elephants. Though we got a lot of rain overnight, they were able to find a little dry dirt to throw on themselves before making their way across the road. Even though we were super happy to see them, we had one goal and one goal only: find cats. This is low tourist season, so we were some of the only people in the park, and boy did we get lucky because almost immediately we spotted this beautiful female lion lounging in the grasses. I was shocked we could get so close to her, and she didn't seem to mind. We could hear other lions in the distance the entire time we were with her, and our guide thought she may be hunting because she looked hungry. We didn't want to disturb her any more than we already had, so we continued our drive, and I figured that was the luckiest we were going to get the entire time we were on safari. It wasn't. Just wait till you hear what we found this afternoon. Right before we stopped for breakfast, I spotted these little jackals running around. To be honest, I thought they were some sort of fox until we got a closer look. We also spotted this secretary bird, which I swear is the size of a toddler. This may be TMI, but this was part of the day when I said, I need a bathroom now. Bundi knew of one that wasn't far away, but right as we went to try and cross the river, an elephant emerged and told us we were going to have to wait. Luckily, he understood it was an emergency and moved on relatively quickly. After our brief intermission, we spotted this ostrich family right before breaking for lunch. We counted 10 ostrich chicks running around their mama, and if you thought this was good, you're gonna want to stick around for the next part. We were told we may not see any cats on safari, so I set my expectations low, and they were blown out of the water. Of course, seeing any animal at all is super exciting, but I just about jumped out of the Jeep because I was so surprised to see not one, but 4 cheetahs. When I first saw them, my brain told me hyenas because I saw multiple cats together, and I always think of cheetahs as solitary animals, but as we drove closer, it was so clear they were cheetahs. They were really easy to spot because one of them was planted on top of the termite mound while the others were walking around the base. They were in no hurry as they crossed the path in front of us, which gave us an excellent view. When they're walking in the grasses, they're much more difficult to see because their coloring allows them to blend in, but clearly they were in the mood to show off today because they came and sat out in the open for us to admire. I'm a loud person by nature. I know how to project my voice, especially when I get excited, but that was not an issue because I was left completely speechless watching these cats interact with each other. We got to stay with them for about 15 minutes before they decided to move on, and we believe they went and took down a geranuk together because of how they moved into formation as they were exiting. I was feeling high on life and super lucky, so we were putting all of our energy into finding a leopard, and we did. A leopard tortoise. We weren't specific enough with our wishes, but still very cool. I'm convinced we have the best guide in the entire country of Kenya because we had such a successful day on safari, seeing both a female lion and 4 cheetahs hunting together among other exciting animals. And Bundi surprised us with drinks at this stunning lookout because that's the only way to celebrate an incredibly successful day. Every day we share one thing that surprised us and one thing that delighted us, and this was the perfect setting to reflect with one another. The surprises continued even after we returned to the hotel with a birthday celebration for Bruce. Even though I'm so sad to be leaving tomorrow, we get to do another game drive on the way out, so hopefully our luck continues. So while we've well established that I'm not the biggest fan of all the monkeys around here, it is pretty wild, pun intended, to be able to take a stroll and see them playing together right in front of my door. There are uniformed guards who patrol the premises with slingshots to frighten the monkeys away if they see them causing any trouble for the guests. But monkeys are mischievous and move quickly, okay? But monkeys aren't the only animals who live here. One day this really large lizard climbed out of the water feature that wraps around the main building and really shocked me as I was walking to lunch. Again, I was happy to peacefully coexist, but really grateful that he was moving in the opposite direction from me. And of course, no one can tell me that the free foot therapy isn't cool, even if the fish are huge. We almost skipped our final game drive in favor of getting more sleep, but thank God we didn't because look at what was waiting for us this morning. As we were driving into the park, a fellow safari driver brought us to this spot where we discovered 4 mothers and 7 cubs feasting on this oryx. All of the lions appeared to be super lethargic, and the bellies on all the cubs were so big. It looked like there were 2 sets of cubs, and our guide suspected one set was about 2 months old, and the other set was about 5 months old. 2 of them kept venturing off on their own, and it seemed like they were really testing their independence, but as soon as the lions heard anything in the distance, they came running right back. We had at least a 6-hour drive ahead of us, and I was so bummed to leave, but incredibly grateful we got to have this experience. As we were leaving the park, we stopped to use the bathroom and found that we had a completely flat tire. We were back on the road in no time and made a few stops on the way. The first was a picture to prove that we crossed the equator, and the second was at a restaurant in a tree house called Trout Tree, where I had a delicious pasta. They also have a family of monkeys who live on the property, and we all know how I feel about the monkeys these days, but I did go say hello to them before we left. I can't believe that tomorrow is our last day. I am so sad to be leaving. Imagine you're late for a reservation at a baby elephant sanctuary when these faces pop up. What do you do? Our final day in Kenya may have been the best day we had, but I will let you be the judge of that. We started off by going on a game drive in Nairobi National Park and immediately came across these white rhinos, and that was just the beginning of our luck for the day. I was told that rhinos can be difficult to find, and not to brag, but we could not get away from them. I happened to mention to our guide Bundi that the one thing I would have loved to see was an adult male lion because I think their manes are beautiful. All of a sudden, Bundi says, "Cece, get your camera," and up from the grasses rises an adult male lion. There was also a female lion laying in the grass, and I'll let you imagine what they got up to. Next, we headed to the pond where we saw a bunch of crocodiles and some hippos. This park was definitely busier than the other parks we visited, and Bundi told us that since it's right in Nairobi, it remains relatively busy all year round. We stopped for lunch and admired this beautiful view, but we had an elephant orphanage to get to, which was the original reason for our visit today, so we had to arrive by 11 a.m. Originally, we weren't worried about the timing until we saw these two giraffes walking and had to stop as one of them started to neck the other. I had no idea this was a natural behavior for giraffes to exhibit, and I could not believe my eyes. Unfortunately, we couldn't stay to watch them long and had to keep moving because now we were pressed for time, but lo and behold, we had to stop again because we came right across four tiny cubs resting with their mother immediately next to the side of the road. This opportunity was way too good to just pass up, so we pulled over to take some pictures, and then we finally made it to the elephant orphanage right in time for the main event.
We were almost late to our reservation at the baby elephant orphanage because of the giraffes and the lion cubs, but luckily we made it just in time to see all the little elephants run in for their bottles. Sheldrick Wildlife Trust is currently home to 20 orphaned elephants who have been rescued for a variety of reasons. Some were found alone without explanation, but others were trapped in wells, manholes, ditches, or orphaned due to drought or human-wildlife conflict. Elephants are social animals by nature, so even though they're given individual stables to sleep in, a keeper is assigned to stay with each elephant to keep them company and bottle feed them overnight. These elephants sometimes arrive with physical wounds, but almost all of them are brought in with psychological wounds as they're deeply emotional creatures. The keepers work with them to help them feel protected as they join the nursery herd and nurture their development as they roam free in Nairobi National Park each day. Having the opportunity to watch them interact with the keepers and the guests is truly so sweet, the perfect way to end our trip on a high note.